want to also get that live streaming going.
I do
I
want to
don't
do
have the
that.
option.
And I'm not sure that I see that option.
Got it.
We should be good to go here. Thank you, Bill.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And on behalf of the Wisconsin Arts Board, we want to welcome you to this panel meeting today. We're going to start out with some introductions and then move into our orientation. And then we'll go into the review of the individual applicants. So I'll start out. My name is Bill Mitchell. I'm a member of the Arts Board for about a year and a half now or so. I'm a visual artist. I also run a nonprofit all-volunteer art gallery in Platteville called Roundtree Gallery. And those are the things that are my creative life that take up quite a bit of my time. So can we just go around and maybe the panelists can start to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about your background and some of the things that you do with your work. So maybe Ken, can we start with you?
Sure. My name is Ken Carlson. I live in Viroqua, Wisconsin. I worked as an arts administrator with 3 different organizations over a career of 40 years or so. I am no longer doing arts administration, doing some small things here in Viroqua. So thank you.
Peggy?
Hi, good morning. Maggie Marquardt. I'm in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I am serving as Executive Director for Create Portage County, which is an organization that intertwines arts and entrepreneurship and cultural community development. And my background personally is in dance, and I have an undergrad and master's degree in arts administration.
Thank you. Kintara?
Hi, my name is Dr. Quintero Sufrant, and I'm curator of community dialogue at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And this is my first time serving on the review panel, so thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And Ida?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Ida Balderrama Trudell. My pronouns are she, her. I currently work at Overture Center for the Arts, and I also have a consulting business, Ida Be True Consulting, where I do diversity and equity work. And it's my first time serving on the committee.
Being here. Okay, maybe the staff could go and introduce themselves as well.
Sure, I'll start. Karen Geschko. I'm the assistant director at the Arts Board, and I get to work with the local arts piece of Creative Communities, and really delighted that you all are here. Thanks. Sarah, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Egan. I'm the intern at the Wisconsin Arts Board this year, and I'm really excited to co-facilitate this panel meeting because I've never done that before. So,
Caitlin?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator at the Arts Board, and I work primarily with the arts ed and folk arts applicants through the Creative Communities program. And I'm just here in the background today in case we need anything.
Awesome.
Happy to listen in.
Great. Dale?
And my name is Dale Johnson. I'm grant specialist here at the Arts Board and executive director of the New Glarus Cat Farm. And I will be keeping track of your scores in the background today.
And last but not least.
Hi, everyone. George Sugros, the executive director of the Arts Board. And I'm just noting this historic moment because you have all 5 Wisconsin Arts Board staff people on the Zoom. I'm not sure that that's ever happened before, so mark it down in history. Echoing what Karen said before, thank you so much, not only for taking the time for today and all the preparation that you did, but now being flexible in this moment of having to respond to family emergency. All of that is really great. You are in great hands with Bill and the team, so I hope you have a great day. And you know, at the end of the day, as you'll be told, we'll be looking for feedback from you as to how to improve, because we're always looking to improve. So again, thank you so much. And I'll pop in and out of the YouTube, so I'll be listening, but I won't have my face here during the day. Take care.
Well, thanks everyone for that. I think next we're going to get started with our orientation. So we're going to read through some different parts of what the orientation entails. And I'll start a little bit here with some history of the Arts Board. The Wisconsin Arts Board, established in 1973, is a state agency which nurtures creativity, cultivates expression, promotes the arts, supports the arts and education, stimulates community and economic development, and serves as a resource for the people of every culture and heritage. Our vision is inspired by a quote from the late Robert E. Gard, Professor Emeritus of Community Theater, University of Wisconsin. Quote, "If we are seeking in America, let it be for the reality of democracy in the arts. Let art begin at home and let it spread through the children and the parents and through the schools and through the institutions and through government. And let us start by acceptance, not negation, acceptance that the arts are important everywhere and that they exist and flourish in small places as well as large, with money and without, according to the will of the people. Let us put firmly and permanently aside the cliche that arts are a frill. Let us accept the goodness of art where we are now and expand its worth in the places where people live." End quote. We embrace this vision. It guides our belief that the arts are basic to human life and essential to the human spirit. The Wisconsin Art Board values imagination, creativity, curiosity, freedom of expression, respect and appreciation for all cultures and people, artistic quality, a broad definition of the arts, audience and patron development, community engagement. A major portion of the agency's biennial appropriation from the state of Wisconsin legislature is distributed to eligible artists and nonprofit organizations in the form of matching grants. Additional funds for grants are also allocated to the Wisconsin Arts Board by the National Endowments for the Arts, a federal agency. The board itself consists of 15 voting members who are appointed by the governor of Wisconsin. These members serve without compensation for a minimum of 3-year term. Members of the board are responsible for establishing the agency's policies and programs and for approving all grant awards. The board meets a minimum of 4 times per year. All meetings are open to the public. The board employs an executive director, a chief administrative officer. As the chief administrative officer, the director supervises the Wisconsin Arts Board staff, programs, and day-to-day operations. The agency's full-time program staff implement policies and programs, including grants, and provides technical and informational services to the public. And I think aims and objectives. Is that staff members going to go through that?
Yeah,
Or
and I can read through.
Did I miss something?
Nope, I got it. Okay, so the aims and objectives of this particular program panel. The local arts component of the Creative Communities grant program supports the creation and development of arts at the local level. So the goals of the local arts component of the Creative Communities program are to encourage broad public participation at the local level in the planning and development of a variety of arts experiences and services, including those that respect and promote the diverse cultural traditions of their community, to increase the ability of local arts organizations to serve their communities, and to support creative work and cultivate expression.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, the role of the panelists. Your role today is to provide expert assistance to the Wisconsin Art Board in its grant-making decisions and to help keep the board informed regarding needs and trends that you see. Today, you will be reviewing grant applications according to the established review criteria and making recommendations to the board. We would like you to apprise the board of needs and trends within your field and the community, either through your general discussions of applications or in written assessments for board consideration. We would greatly welcome your input, and we would value any suggestions and recommendations you would like to make on the whole grant evaluation process. Okay, the role of the panel chair. The role of the panel chair is both informational and procedural. The chair is responsible for providing information regarding Wisconsin Arts Board policy and ensuring that the panel meetings progress in an orderly fashion according to established procedures. The chair is a non-voting facilitator whose job it is to ensure that each panelist's point of view is given ample consideration throughout the review of each application. The panel chair convenes the meeting, reviews the board's conflicts of interest policy and determines whether possible conflicts exist, guides the panel through the review by serving as a timekeeper and discussion monitor. Panelists should focus their deliberations on how each application's proposals meets the established criteria review. Chair may occasionally need to refocus the panel towards that end. Panel discussion should always be constructive, regardless of whether it is positive or negative. At the May board meeting, the panel chair will report the panel's recommendations. A written record of these recommendations and a summary of this panel meeting will be provided by staff to facilitate this process. The panel chair will provide additional details if requested by the board. The chair may also wish to comment on any of the trends or needs identified by the panel or make general observations regarding the overall nature of grant requests. We would greatly value constructive comments and remarks on each application. Panel comments are available to all applicants, and a link to the recorded discussion of their application is provided when they are notified of the outcome of their grant application. Okay, role of the staff.
Yeah, so I or Karen can answer technical questions like eligibility issues or whether the applicant submitted the required budgets. Did this applicant ask for assistance from me or Karen in the grant writing process? I cannot make any qualitative artistic judgments or tell you what I think of their work. And then criteria. Each application will be evaluated based on the purpose of the Creative Communities program, the goals for the local arts component, and specifically on the criteria areas outlined on your score sheets. And then scoring recommendations, you'll be asked to score each application individually from 1 to 100. However you score, be consistent throughout the day. Do not score hard at first and then get easier, or vice versa. The panel sheets will then be collected and the points will be averaged and announced. If you don't give a perfect score, and of course you won't in every instance, then explain why in written or verbal comments. You will then look at the ranking to identify whether or not you see natural breaks and where you want to put the floor, beneath which score no applicants will receive funding. You have already vetted an earlier version of these applications in phase 1, so it is presumed that the bulk of these are worthy of funding. However, based on the additional information provided in these phase 2 applications, the panel may decide that some do not fully meet the funding criteria and so are not recommended for funding. Please note that if an applicant has received less than 50 points, they are automatically taken out of consideration for a grant this year, and you will not be asked to deal with dollar amounts.
Okay, what happens next in the process? As noted previously, the panel chair takes the panel recommendations to the full board. After review and ratification of the panel's recommendations by the Arts Board members at their meeting, applicants will be notified of grant decisions by the end of May. Conflict of interest policy. You have received a conflict of interest form. In the unlikely circumstance that you are asked to review an application of an organization with which you or a person with whom you have a familiar relationship are associated, we ask that you withdraw from consideration of that application, including participating in subsequent stages of discussion regarding the applicant's relative ranking. The panel member should not take any action on any application which would financially benefit a member of the advisory panel or someone with whom a member has a familiar relationship. Panelists should be upfront about their ability to judge an application objectively. The perception of conflict should also be considered and avoided.
And the recording of the meeting, as you have already observed, this meeting is being recorded because it is an open meeting and because we will make the recording available for applicants to see following grant notification. It is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel today in accordance with Wisconsin Sunshine Law related to open meetings, and we have invited applicants and the public to observe your work there. Regarding the appeals process, we would like to let you know that an applicant may only make an appeal based on procedural errors and not the basis of an artistic judgment.
Great, thank you. That's our orientation portion of this. Is there any questions on anything we've covered there? No? Okay, excellent. Karen?
Bill, I think I'd like to just go through the process of submitting your scores once you are done with that after each of the 10-minute discussions. So you have thank you for submitting your initial reviews yesterday. When you open your panelist comment and scoring sheet back up, you will see that now there are boxes or lines for those scores. After the discussion of an application, We're going to give you some time to put any additional written comments that you feel you need to put in there. Not always. There are times when panelists don't add any more comments, but they synopsize their thoughts into a number and put it in each of those categories. And then and there are 2 pages to that, so make sure you go to the next page and then or click next, do what you need to do there, and then hit submit. When Dale has received all 4 of your score sheets, he'll give us a thumbs up, and Bill can move us on to the next applicant. Does that make sense? And Ken or Maggie, having done this before, do you have any additional pieces of wisdom to share to that? Okay, great. Thank you.
We're going to have 10 minutes for each applicant, and the first read will have 2 minutes to present, and I will give a kind of a 2-minute warning if you've gone to that point. And at that point, we'd like to kind of have you wrap up if you're the first reader, and we'll move on to the second reader, and then we can move on to the other panelists to have their input as well. I will give another 2 minutes, 2 minutes left in that 10 minutes at the 8-minute mark. So we try and stay on track. The goal here is to give everyone a chance to express their opinion on the application and feel like they have enough time to do that. And also we have obviously a number of applicants to review. So we want to keep things moving along at a fairly even pace here. So I'm going to try and be pretty strict on the timekeeping. So I hope you'll help me out with that as well. Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
Yeah,
Karen, do you have something else?
I'm a little conflicted. I have to say, we said that the meeting will start at 9.
Okay.
And we put that agenda out to everybody. We are, however, recording this. So normally we would just sort of say, okay, y'all, take a breath, do any sort of last minute getting a cup of coffee, or tea or beverage or whatever you need to do, and then rejoin, and we'll kick off at 9. I guess I would take your thoughts on that as panelists, and again, ask if there are any overarching questions that you have before we get into this process today. Yeah,
Karen, I just want to confirm that the first reader is giving the project summary. Because last year we didn't do it like that, so I just wanted, this year we are.
We are, yes, we are. We've experimented last year, and it made more sense this year to bring you back into that owning the panel summary in 1 minute or less. Knowing, but yeah, and then sharing really the focus of your commentary on the strengths that you saw within the application, questions that you have, weaknesses that you observed, whatever, that kind of thing. Thank you for asking that question, Maggie.
And just clarification, in that summary, that's outside of the 2 minutes of the first read time, or is it part of that?
It's part of it.
Okay, got it.
And to be honest, as these panel meetings go, usually the first few applications, Bill, close your ears. No, the first few applications sometimes take longer than 10 minutes as you all kind of find your rhythm, and that's okay because it evens out over time. If we get desperately late, we can always truncate our lunch a little bit, lunchtime, and then jump back in when we say we are for the afternoon review. Yeah, that's my thought on that. Having said that, it is hard when there's a really great conversation going to be in Bill's seat and have to say, okay, you first reader, their 2 minutes have already gone by, to see the shock on the first reader's face as they go, wait, what? and then have the discussion continue. And then as 8 minutes comes up, to say there's 2 minutes left in this 10-minute discussion. Having said that, we would very much like to have you all share your voice in each and every discussion, even if it's just nothing to add, or ditto, or I had a question, or whatever. That will be helpful too. Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, if as the day goes on, you just need to turn your camera off for a minute to kind of recombobulate while the discussion is going, please feel free to do that. We love to see your faces, but do what you need to do to be fully present here. Yeah, Bill, anything to add there? It is about 10 till. What do you think?
No, just to add on what you were saying too, I'll be keeping the time and trying to keep track of that very quick, but I do want people to have their chances to get their voices heard and let the discussions go where they need to go, depending on the application. So there will be some room with that as well, but I just want to have that in everyone's back of their mind that we do need to kind of keep on a certain pace in order to get through our work today. So I appreciate everyone taking that to heart. I don't know if everyone's okay with it. I think it's okay to start. Karen, as long as you don't see any issues with us having the agenda at 9 and then starting a few minutes early, or
I mean, we'll break tradition and do it if you'd like, but
I have one question, if I can, before we get started. And I'm sorry I didn't think about this sooner, but it just sort of occurred to me last night, I guess. On the in the application itself, the second to last tab, support materials. The last section includes optional support materials, where often there are letters of support, things like that. And I tend to be fond of letters of support as ways to help me bolster what else I've seen in the application. If an application does not have letters of support, is that something that is that's fair game for criticism, or is the fact that it's labeled optional, meaning that it's not really required, but it's great if they do it?
indeed, the second.
Okay.
We don't require it. And some projects, I think you will find it makes more sense for some than others to have those letters of support, especially if it's a reassurance to you all that the partner that they mentioned really is in, or the work really is happening in the way that they say that it's happening, but it is not something that we require. So please don't cut them down for it. Yeah. Thank you for asking, Maggie.
I would vote to start at 9. It's been just a hectic morning, so if we could have a few minutes before we launch into it, I would appreciate that.
Thank you for saying something. All right. Please feel free to close your camera if you want, or leave it on, and be here at 8:59 with heated coffee or whatever. And what do you think, Bill? Is that okay?
that sounds great. Yeah, everyone take a little break and we'll see you in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, thanks.
Maggie, thanks again for saying something about the timing here. I'm appreciating the coffee warm up. So
But
yeah,
especially on Zoom, I think it takes a lot of energy to really be present the whole time. So I know we are all working to do that.
yes, thank you for that.
Maggie, I remember the orientation that we had in which you said something along the lines of, and don't plan to do anything for the rest of the day after the panel is over. Do you remember that? Well, I've taken your advice to heart, and I'm just going to like lay on the couch, I think, Maggie.
Well done. Well done.
I don't think I took my own advice because I think I have something that I need to do after this today, but I'm gonna try.
At least I don't know, I'm hoping that it's sunny wherever you all are, and to at least make a point of rising from the chair and going outside during, if not every break, at least the lunch break. Just to get a deep breath of that spring is finally here air. And at the end of the day, we'll thank Sarah for helping to facilitate before she rushes out the door to her next gig. And I'm betting, Sarah, that you'll just turn the evaluation portion over to Bill and to me, and we'll take that piece from there. Great, thank you. So Bill, I think if you can announce the name of the applicant, Sarah can focus us on who the first and second readers are, and we'll go
Sure.
from there.
Okay, we'll get started then. Our first applicant is City of St. Croix Falls.
And our first reader is Ken Carlson.
Good morning. This is the Phantom Art Gallery project from St. Croix Falls, a small town here in Wisconsin. $6,000 requested for artistic fees and marketing. It's in the second year. The Phantom Gallery project is a visual arts project designed to enliven the community by using formerly unused spaces like a bank atrium, for instance, that's no longer used as a bank, to display art and to enliven the downtown, make use of the space. The city of St. Croix Falls is handling the administrative responsibilities. The What Art Gallery, that's WHAT, in St. Croix Falls, is going to take on the project and artistic concerns related to it. This is a combination of exhibits and events, including 8 artists, 4 of whom are already chosen, 8 artist talks, an art walk in July. There has been strong community input through a variety of focus groups and surveys to determine programming desires and to make artist suggestions for this project. Overall, it sounds like there's lots of support in St. Croix Falls for this kind of work. The project quality looks good to me. AJ and Elizabeth are in particular leading the arts and the project coordination work. There are several other people identified as well and nicely described in terms of what they'll do. Evaluations plans look solid and include 3 people specifically assigned to observe and document at the public events. So nice job with that. I see value in education, cultural, social, economic for the downtown area as well as the artists. The partnership includes the library as well and a 3rd location in downtown that has to be included, suggesting that people find this really valuable and want to be involved. The project budget seemed fine. The city budget is huge, and so I admit to not spending as much time in the city budget, but the project looked fine. $500 stipends to each of the artists. What would I have strengthened? It would have been a little bit stronger for me if there were more information about what had been learned from year 1 to 2. They definitely addressed that in terms of making the second year a little less formal, maybe a little bit more accessible in that regard. Seems to me there might have been more there to be said, maybe not, but I wondered about that. Despite a good timeline, I couldn't quite get my arms around the July Art Walk because it starts at the beginning of this project. So is it introducing the artists and some of the work they've already created, or looking back at last year's artists? I wasn't sure because I don't think artists from this project will necessarily have their work ready to go. Perhaps a little bit more about the plans to reach non-dominant artists and members of the community in the region. It's definitely in there, definitely working on it. Maybe a little bit more there could have been helpful and confirmed, yes, we want to do this. And not only do we want to, this is how we're going to get it done. So I think
over 3 minutes.
I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Maggie, what have I missed?
Ken, you're always really comprehensive, so I struggle to keep up with your level of detailed comments, but you're a pro, you've done it so many times. I would echo what you said. I really like this project. I appreciate that it's really animating downtown spaces in interesting ways, and especially with the atrium of the bank, just having something where people can engage with art at non-traditional times. I think that's a unique facet of this project. I appreciated the inclusion of having some community nomination input for artist selection efforts, because I think sometimes as you're curating on behalf of the community, you tend to reach out to the people that you know and that you like to work with. And so I would like to see that they're trying to identify people that might not be in their immediate spheres. This is not a critique, but when I think about evaluation for projects like this, and these are things that we wrestle with, I'd love over the long term for them to think about how to measure like their goals around the arts ecosystem and the concepts of social connection and economic vitality. How does some of that work into, if this is a repeating project, how do you get at some of that? And that might be something that the that the city can help with as well. Those are my main comments, so I will yield.
Does
So at this
anyone
point,
else have
yeah,
any comments on this applicant?
Ida Arcantara.
Yeah, I also really liked this project. I liked that they listened to community from previous evaluation, and feedback, like Maggie said. The idea of democratizing art in this way, in multiple modes, right? Like with the interaction with people, the kind, like what they're doing, but also like the building spaces, I think is really important, like what they're doing with that. So yeah, I thought it was strong in those ways.
Nothing to add. I echo all the strengths and some of the productive concerns.
All right. Okay, if no one else has any other input, then do we go on to the scoring portion? Correct?
Just clarifying that we hit submit final review for you on this. Okay, no more drafts. Got
I see Dale's thumb is up, which means all four are in. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next one then. And I think too, I'll still have the 2-minute warning, for the first reader, but I think we'll allow just a little leniency here, especially with having to do the summary. I want to make sure that the first reader does have time to get their thoughts in. So, I'll kind of keep right around there, but not be too strict. Okay, our second applicant is City of Superior Environmental Services Division.
And then Ken Carlson is going to read instead of Aaron as the first
Thank
reader.
you. This is the City of Superior Environmental Services requesting $2,800 to be used for marketing. They're in the third year of this project. The idea with the project is to install community-inspired storm drain street art in visual locations around the city of Superior, both to beautify the community as well as to remind community members and guests that what goes into the storm drain goes directly to Lake Superior. So this is a combination of art, of awareness, of beautifying the community, bringing vitality to the downtown area and the areas where the drains are located. I certainly see educational value in this through the art, through school workshops that are planned to be part of it, to give students a little more opportunity to spend time with this project. There is evidence of what's been learned in previous years being applied in this third year. And so that's good. It's really supporting local arts goals in my mind. again, like the previous application we just discussed, the project budget looked fine to me. The city budget was very large. Of course, it's a city that's applying, so I didn't spend quite as much time with that, but the project budget looked fine. Timeline was clear and helpful. Team leadership seemed appropriately skilled. 2 largely successful years have been completed, and that certainly gives me confidence that they know what they're doing and will do well in this regard as well. A couple of things that I couldn't get quite in my mind in this section. I couldn't tell how many new murals or pieces of art will be created, how many they expect, and would like to have known a little bit more about that. I know the Lung Association will be providing some stipends. I'm not sure how much, and would have been interested just to have that detail as long as it's being addressed in part. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, I wasn't clear on how the artists are being chosen, and I would have liked more information on that. It seems to be a really important part of the success of this project, and I would like to have known more about that, and I hope I didn't miss it. There was some excellent outreach, I thought, to the community to solicit input through Lake Superior Days as one example. I see efforts to be inclusive, specifically through the Indigenous Resource Center in terms of reaching out and presumably working to find artists. There was a nice letter confirming the Lung Association's partnership. And I really like the documentation. They'll be taking high quality photos of each of the new pieces of art and creating an exhibit at a coffee shop so that that work can live on in that regard as well. There will be identification placed at each of the pieces of art to recognize the artists. I think that's good. The evaluation plan in general seemed reasonable to me. I didn't have any problems with that. So I think that those are my primary comments. Let me just look at one more thing here. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you. I yield to the rest of the panel.
I have a clarifying question, and maybe I missed this in the narrative, but I noticed in the budget that there's 0 expenses for artistic fees and services. But are the local artists getting compensated for their work? Was that included anywhere? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think I can help with that in that the Lung Association, as part of its partnership, I understand, will provide stipends to the artists. However, the stipends were not specifically identified. And I should add to this too, you might wonder, well, why is the Lung Association involved? In case you didn't catch it, one of the big forms of pollution in Superior are cigarette butts. And so those are going down the drains, and that's in part why the Lung Association wanted to get involved. But it was my read that they will provide the stipends, just not noted how much. And I would have been curious to have that detail. So
Yeah, I think going forward, I think the project could be strengthened just to let us know how much artists are getting compensated for their labor. But thank you.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Ken shared. I liked their go where the people are approach to getting feedback and input. And I've heard this from other organizations too, but I love that idea of using utility bills and something that everyone gets and opens hopefully to reach out to folks who maybe aren't seeing, promotion for arts events in our more traditional outlets. Yeah, and then I just think they have some really nice, strong partnerships, and I always like the type of projects that use the arts as a meaningful point of entry for tackling some community issue and topic. So I think they're doing some really nice work here.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was the one big comment I put, was that I liked the use, talking about environmental issues and using art and engaging the community. I definitely want to see maybe some leaning into the Indigenous community, like if they're going to continue doing this, maybe there's an Indigenous artist in resident that helps with that. It would be a suggestion that I have. I mean, I see that they have connections with Indigenous centers, but I think, even, doing something even more specific intentionally every year, I think would be kind of cool.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that some of the previous art has included Indigenous language. I'm not sure if I saw that in a work sample or if I read it in the narrative, or if I'm sorry, I can't be more specific, but it was something that I remember considering. I'll also just mention one of the things that I like about the application is the intention of keeping the art well maintained, with plans to, spiff it up, because of course it takes a beating out on the street. And I like the fact that they're really interested to keep it looking nice rather than just sort of let it degrade over time.
Great. Any other comments on this applicant? Okay, if not, I think we can go to our scoring portion.
All right, Dale's thumb went up. On to the next.
Okay, our next applicant is Confluence Council Incorporated.
And Ida will be the first reader for this one.
All right. So the Confluence Council is located in the Eau Claire Chippewa Valley community. It is part of the Pablo Center at the Confluence Center that opened in 2018. It's a regional facility that really offers, lots of opportunities for creatives and, local artists and local partners. Has a theater. There are labs for sound stuff, visual art galleries. So it's really like a huge center for all different kinds of arts. They have a partnership with UW Eau Claire that houses the university's theater program, and it has lab spaces. So there's a community involvement that I like. Their ask is for something that they do called the Wisconsin Shakespeare Festival, which is in its second year. The idea is that they wanted to bring, Shakespeare to an area that is farther away from like Milwaukee, Madison, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and, for up in that region. And so it operates from May to June. They have a 5-pronged approach to the festival. They have main stage productions. They have the Merely Players Young Performers Troupe, the Improbable Fiction New Work Showcase. They have educational classes for local students, and they have initiatives for theater makers within the community. And the idea, again, is to just cast a really wide participant net. They're asking for $6,000 to really increase their main stage performances. They had a couple last year, and they're wanting to increase that. They also want to add more stops to the Merely Players Youth Troupe because they travel around. They really thought about decreasing ticket prices to make the events more accessible for folks, and they wanted to increase the schools who are participating in their free programming. So that's what they're using the money for, really, is for travel and for, increasing the performances and being able to, compensate for the decrease in ticket prices. Something noteworthy that I really liked about this project is that they created an improbable fiction category, or in their improbable fiction, they created a diverse perspectives category. And this year, the focus is on LGBTQ plus playwrights, and, connecting with affinity groups in that space. So I thought that was really great and very, direct. I thought that this grant had a lot of really strong things to offer the community. Sorry, my comments here. I thought it was really impressive that this need was really identified pre-pandemic, and they really have continued to grow it post-pandemic. So, like a lot of things, they had to shift. There's a lot of intentionality, and then their offering is very clear. The model really includes multiple stakeholders from the Chippewa Valley area, to really make Shakespeare more accessible to young audiences, and more diverse audiences.
3 minutes.
Let's see if there's anything else here. I think the community partnerships for me is the strongest aspect of it, and that they're so clear about building equity into their project. So just overall, the multiple modes of evaluation for lots of stakeholders is really great. Yeah, that's what I got.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments?
I just noted that 5-pronged approach, I think, is really ambitious and in a good way, and really trying to get that broad reach as far as possible. I think I made a note that they addressed their organizational budget deficit and future funding in an appropriate way. I think they clearly have strong administration and technical skills to pull off what they're talking about. So the project budget seemed appropriate. I was glad to see the joint effort marketing grant support, because I think that is an appeal regionally to bring people in for that. But I again, I'll echo Ida, that the partnerships I really liked, and I especially the Merely Players troupe. I like the connections to the university, to the Writers Guild, the LGBTQ Community Center. I just like all of that, really direct, intentional getting into other spaces to bring this work forward. So I don't think I had anything that I was recommending. So I'll yield.
Well, I can say that I thought it was a solid application. I noted, I'm not sure if we've talked about the board, but it's large, and appears to have some pretty valuable skill for the organization, so that's helpful. I echo the interest and value in the 5 elements of this project. It seemed to me that you could almost write an application about each one of them. And I would have enjoyed hearing just a little bit more about Merely Players, in particular, how the students are identified and ultimately invited. I didn't see that in the project description, and it's partly due to the fact that there's a lot to talk about here. But I would have enjoyed seeing a little more information about that. And the last thing is, I appreciated the value in the free classes for, I believe, 3 different school districts as part of that work. And again, it sounded really good. So those are some of the things that I can add to what's already been said. Thanks.
I agree, nothing to add here.
All right, I think then we are ready to go to the scoring portion.
And then Bill, we've got the go ahead from Dale.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to our next applicant, we have the Esprit de Concerts.
And the first reader is going to be Kintara, and the second reader is Ida.
So Esprit de Concerts is an arts organization that runs a number of programs in both Illinois and Wisconsin. And they're seeking funds for the third year of a project that begins after July 1st, the Tallgrass Festival, which is a multidisciplinary arts festival held in Potosi, Wisconsin. This festival currently presents 2 weeks of chamber music concerts in Tallgrass Hall, a renovated barn in the Potosi area, in June of every year. And the 2-week festival includes 4 concerts that include musical performances, discussions with audiences, open rehearsals, school concerts, and volunteer opportunities for community members to be involved as they wish. 10 artists will be directly involved with the project, and Esprit de Concert hopes to engage 200 adults in person and 50 children in person. They're requesting $6,000. And some of the strengths that I saw with the project includes help to create an artistic region for rural Southwest Wisconsin. This is really the connection to Potosi. I would say that my memory of the initial round, one of my questions was, why Potosi? What's the connection? Because the organization is also based in Evanston, Illinois. And I think this was really flushed out in the application. They have lived there. So to me, it really is sort of emerging from their lived experience in Potosi and realizing the absence of arts there. Their desire to make arts more available in rural Wisconsin is another strength. I think the idea that the project stems from living in both rural Potosi and in urban communities, and the ways in which the festival tries to be a part of the community. And I think this is also a strength. You can see that community members have become so involved and committed to it that they will volunteer carpentry services. They will also volunteer feedback on how to make it more sustainable, and they are a part of the fundraising efforts. I would say that some of the weaknesses or concerns that I have include the fact that concert attendance is the main source of measuring their success. And this seems insufficient as they stated that their audience includes both individuals from the area as well as folks from Chicago, Iowa, and New York. And so to me, if you really want to measure whether or not you're bringing arts and culture to rural Southwest Wisconsin, maybe you should do something a little bit further than counting heads in the audience. But that's both a suggestion and a comment. And the budget is going to be used to support admin fees, technical production, and artistic fees and services, which is the bulk of it. So those are all of my initial comments. Bill, am I under 2 minutes? Am I okay?
Just over, but you're fine. If you have a few more things to say, that's okay.
No, that's everything.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
Oh, I would say one of the things I really liked about it is because it is rural, it is connected to the university. So, I think that that's a good point. Like Kintara said, measuring a success, I think that's a very natural way to measure success, when you're thinking about the students and the staff at the university being involved. So is there a way to incorporate that? I think locally would be really great. It's very well funded. So, I think that, as Kintara said, like that's definitely a strength as well. And I also just noted, just to reiterate, the volunteers, the community has really embraced the Tallgrass Festival, which is great for longevity of something like this in a rural place. So I really like it.
I failed to mention, thanks for bringing this up, Ida, the University of Wisconsin Platteville reached out to the festival because they have string students, but no string instructors. So they really created a partnership where they also host master classes. So to me, that was really a strength of the program because it really seeds it in partnerships. And also they source all of their food locally in an effort to steward land and community nights there. So I feel like they're creating roots in Potosi.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kintara. I was going to mention the Institute a little bit as well, because not only is it a nice partnership, but it's also satisfies one of my concerns about what have you learned from previous years to this year. And what they learned was that there was a real interest in having this partnership, that the university reached out. And so they're responding to something that they learned in a previous year and really putting it to me to pretty good use this time around. I echo all of the connections on a local level that go well beyond music, to construction materials, to supplies, to all kinds of services that were listed. Gosh, what a beautiful setting for a concert. And the folks who are involved, to me, the quality of the work sample that I heard and some of the things that I read in biographies suggest that these are very skilled musicians and performers. So the quality was high for me. Thanks.
Thank you all for those comments. I think I would just add, at least for me, I would have found it helpful to have a little bit more description of the communities the festival is serving, just for context. And I'd echo the comments about evaluation. I just put in some questions in the comments about, in addition to growing audience numbers, how do you discover if attendees find these easier to access, or if they have been attending experiences before, are these new for them? And they also had mentioned a goal of increasing knowledge of and programming of composers of color. So also, how are you measuring that, especially as it grows year to year? I think that would be really useful. And, they talked about working with Platteville's music department and arts organizations for input about the planning. And I would have been curious, I just put this in additional comments, like what were some of those specific things, and maybe some additional detail about whose voices are included in the planning. But I think that's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. I think we're ready to head to the scoring portion.
And we have the go ahead from Dale.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Okay, our next applicant is Feast of Crispian Inc.
And Maggie is the first reader and Kantara is the second.
Man, we're really cruising through these today. Woo. So this project, they're based in Milwaukee. They're requesting $6,000 for the second year of the storytelling project. So Feast of Crispian is an organization that uses Shakespeare as a basis for a therapeutic application for veterans with PTSD. And in the second year of the project, in the first year, they've collected more than 24 stories, veteran stories that now will be performed and presented to share with a civilian or mixed audience. So in addition to veterans having informed and created the stories, they will be performing as well and touring to share their experiences And veterans attending the storytelling events will also be invited to sort of enter the circle and share stories. So really drawing some connections between these contemporary lived stories now and Shakespeare. They haven't quite determined exactly how that connection is going to be built, but just a really interesting project that I think has a very direct and really integrated approach with the community that they're serving. Tickets to the events would be low or no cost to make it accessible, and they have future plans to bring it to further areas throughout the state of Wisconsin. The notes that I made about the strengths as I saw them was, really a wide range of veteran participants, a wide age range, from 20s up to the 80s, men, women, people of color, individuals with physical disabilities, LGBTQ. So really a diverse cross-section of veterans being part of this. I appreciated that some of the project leaders have that lived experience as well as veterans. They have some really strong connections to mental health staff at the VA hospital, the Medical College of Wisconsin. They appear to have very qualified artistic and administrative project coordinators, especially around somatic therapy and drama therapy. So really a well-rounded group of people behind this project, and such an interesting connection to theater and Shakespeare and storytelling. I think I here just talked about having a little bit more direct connection between the proposed outcomes and the evaluation piece, maybe some more one-on-one interviews or creating more pre and post evaluation tools would be helpful. But overall, I thought this was a really strong project. I yield.
I think the work of Feast of Crispian is strong. I think what would have made the application stronger if they had really situated that they are seeking funds for a process and not just a final production. Because I think that there is a lot of unknowns right now on the project in terms of schools that they want to partner with, the performers they're using, et cetera. But I think really what holds to be the strength of this is theater as a process for supporting the veterans. And I think highlighting that more would have made for a stronger application, because currently some of the production ideas are a little vague, particularly when compared to some of the other theater organizations. And I had a few budget concerns, and I didn't quite understand the budget summary because they are operating at a higher expense for the past few fiscal years, but they did sort of create in the narrative why that is. The reason for the drop in revenue is because of less funding. They were out of cycles with Better Philanthropy, but I think more clarification on the budget. I trust that Feast of Crispian can execute this because of their many years of experience. But those were two of the concerns that I had, just a reframing of the project as more reframing of process, and bringing these stories and collected narratives to life. And then the other is just current budget. Otherwise, I can see this project going forward.
Well, I like the project. I like the I like the focus, I guess, of really serving a specific population with some specific goals in that, and so that was appealing to me. The folks leading it looked qualified and pretty strong. The board had a mix of longevity and some useful experience. So joining in with what's already been said, I think this project will happen and can be accomplished. A couple of things, well, a couple of other things. First, the partnerships with Zablocki, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, and the Medical College of Wisconsin all seemed useful and appropriate. I know that the veterans were essentially identified in 2023, and so it's not really part of this project per se, but I would have enjoyed understanding how they were identified and invited, just to judge that part of how are you, reaching into the community and inviting access and involvement. That was one of the things that I would have liked. Oh, and there was a question in the timeline for me, which was otherwise pretty good, but there was a stretch. I'm trying to run to it now. From June into July, where I wasn't sure what was happening, and just because a lot of the other parts of the project were fairly well detailed, I wondered what was going on in that period of time. And I'm sorry, I'm scrambling to get there, but I don't have it right here at my fingertips. So I don't know if it's not that important. Okay, I think I'm done. Thanks. Sorry.
I echo what everybody said. I think that just having events like this for veterans is so important. I also think connecting with local veterans groups very intentionally, right? And in addition to the VA hospital, similar to what Ken said, I would like to see that more. Like if they already have those relationships, maybe they just didn't list them, but if they don't, intentionally seeking them out, I think is really important as well. So I think that's the only addition I have.
Ken, just as a note related to the timeline question, I think this, I'll just insert here that I think it would be helpful for applicants to try to do timelines in bullet point form as much as possible, just because it is hard to go back and pull information when it's a narrative paragraph. It's just a side note.
Yeah, I agree. And I know there was a gap there. I've sort of given up looking for it now, but I just wanted to know what was happening in that period as well.
Yeah, it looks like it jumps from, it talks about May through June and then doesn't talk again until
late July, I think, when
August. Or is the next date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which-
Not a huge point, but once I got into it, you kind of just want to follow it through. So
I guess I assumed as a theater kid that July would be focused on honing in on the performance, because May and June are going to be focused on finalizing the story choices. So the collective oral histories and then converting them into the final shape of the play. And then July is all rehearsal process and the work. Yeah.
thanks,
Thank you for
Ken.
that. And also please, Maggie, or whoever, please mention that at the end of the day when we do that evaluation piece, because that's something we can put as a best practice or whatever for applicants. Timeline bullets.
This is
Any other
just
comments?
sorry, this is just the anthropologist in me. I know that this performance is based on stories that they receive from veterans, and Ken, maybe this is similar to what you were saying before, but I would really like to know how they gathered those stories before. And I do think they have a network of veterans who feel safe and trust them, but I would love to know more about that process and some of the ethics and the codes and the interview formats and whatnot. And I'm sure they're there. I really trust the people who are part of the project and the level of care that they bring to the work. But for me, I was really curious about the format of gathering those stories and their interlocutors.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this applicant? Okay, hearing none.
The only thing that I can offer, Ken, Tara, in a quick look here is there's a department chair named Robin Mello, who is a storytelling teacher at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Peck School of the Arts, has been hired as the storytelling advisor tentatively. So, I kind of wondered about that too, though. Like, people can have stories, but taking those stories to a stage and making them compelling and giving them shape is a real skill. And so, I thought about that too, and it decided that it looks like Robin may be part of the answer to that.
Okay, we're at the 11-minute point here, so if anyone has anything else to say, maybe jump in now, otherwise we can head to scoring. No? Okay, head to the scoring, please.
Bill, we're good to go with Dale.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next applicant is Fermat/Theater Company, Inc.
And Ken is the first reader and Maggie is the second.
Okay, hang on, I'm just about there. Okay, Fermat/Theater Company, Inc. in Madison, requesting $1,800 used for artistic fees. This is a first-year project. Gosh, I really like this application. I'll just start out there. This is a documentary theater project featuring the works of Albert Camus, James Connolly. The work is not only documentary theater, but also includes instrumental and vocal music, along with some visual. I think the approach and care taken with the creative side of this project, it just strikes me as really thoughtful and thorough. Making use of partner organizations on a regional level, national experts brought in to help make sure the work is really accurate and done well that way. Solid and experienced board. Evaluation seems reasonable in terms of the written stuff. What I especially liked about the evaluation part of it and the whole experience is the thought that's been put into the post-performance discussions. It's not just like getting up there and saying, oh, what did you think? They're putting more thought into how to sort of lead that discussion without, taking it in a very specific direction, still leaving it open-ended. That was the impression that I had. Access on one level is assured because the shows are free. The work is also traveling from time to time to locations in the community, which is another a point of access, having performed historically in bars and kitchens. Really, this work strikes me as a labor of love among the creatives. I would have been happy to see more detailed bios in the support materials. I feel like the folks are solid, but prove it. Show it to me in a little more detail. Timeline was sufficient, but I always like to see a little more detail there as well. It just helps me to know when I see the detail that you're thinking about the details and really keeping them at the forefront. I see diversity in the creative team and in the company in some instances, but the diversity in the audience, really candid in the application sometimes hits the mark and sometimes doesn't. So it seems like it doesn't seem like it's clearly in their minds. It's just that there's probably more work to be done here. I think that those are some of the main things. Oh, I didn't see evaluations being done internally with the artists, at least not noted. I think I bet it's happening, but please note it. And if I missed it somewhere, my apologies. Greater work on diversifying the audience if you can. I think that those are some of the main comments. I better stop now and I'll jump in if I have more. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. I would agree that having free theater productions like that element of accessibility is really commendable. I would add that it looks like their primary partners are all academics. And someone can correct me if you see something else. So I just wonder if there are other community entities that could be engaged for REACH, especially to meet those goals around a more diverse audience. I think the note in the application was that their audiences reflect the makeup of Madison and being well educated and interested in current events and history and appreciative of the arts. So how might you intentionally reach people who don't fit that definition or that perspective of Madison? I wasn't really clear on, besides just like Madison and, the region broadly, if there was more about the community that they were trying to serve. They talk about this broad need for us to have work that combats polarization. And I think that's a really commendable goal, but it was unclear whether there was any intent to measure the work's impact related to that. And I know that's a tough thing to get at probably in the moment, but I had made a note that they made a comment about attendance as the best measure of success for this project, and I would question that and think about some other evaluation tools. Although, like Ken, I appreciate the focus on discussion after the performances. And in my additional comments, for me, a more clearly defined why in connection to engaging the local community. I wasn't sure if this is more about developing opportunities for artists, like even talking more about that as well. And then I would suggest caution in relying on observation in some ways to gather information about attendee demographics. And I think there was one comment in there about someone's last name indicating that they were at least half Latinx, and just I find that problematic. So caution against that. And I will yield.
Maggie, when you said why, one of the things that I've been thinking through about this, and from its initial, I think phase one, I've been really interested in this performance, but I think I would say that as the so what, like what's the so what of the performance, and the so what, not to be like, why are you doing it, but what's the relevancy of it to different constituencies? Because I do think that this is a very conceptual, theoretical, historical-based performance. And I think that they might be foreclosing, and I think the narrative tries to make the connections between Sudan, Israel, Palestine, and I think they might be foreclosing who could see themselves in the text a little bit. And if they were to spend a little bit more time in the so what, like why this matters in this place right now, these two figures, I think that would open them up to potential partnerships in other places for performing, other venues in the Madison area. So I would agree with your why. And I would add the so what to that. But I feel like even from reading the application, I learned a lot, and that makes me really excited about the potential of the mounting of the performance.
Yeah, this is not a criticism, but I'll just add that one of the thoughts that I had was they're only requesting $1,800 out of a possible 6,000. This is a really lean organization in terms of the people who can really take things on. But would it be possible in the future, if they do this again, to request a little bit more money with the specific purpose of engaging someone to reach out to a local community organization or community center, or somehow work to better address the connection to diversity and to the fact that they're taking the shows on the road from some time, so to speak, from time to time. Could they identify an organization within that community where the show is going to be taking place, and then really forge some stronger local relationships that way? It's not a criticism; it's a thought for the future.
Yeah, that was my similar thoughts to both of you. When you look at where they have gone, the kinds of places that they have gone, not necessarily diverse in terms of racial and ethnic diversity, it does feel very academic. And so if part of the goal in the future is to reach more diverse audiences, how are we engaging in the way that you all are mentioning, very intentionally, at places in and around the Madison area like Goodman, or, folks who are doing, arts in more diverse spaces, because they definitely exist. So just encouraged to investigate that further, because it would strengthen it.
All right, any other thoughts? Okay, if not, then go ahead with the scoring, please.
We're good to go. Bill.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, our next applicant up is Historic Milwaukee, Inc.
And the first reader is Kentera, and there's no second reader.
Thanks. So Historic Milwaukee Inc. is seeking funds for their King Drive app tour beginning July 1st, 2024 and lasting until December 31st, 2024. HMI will develop and launch a new app-based tour to showcase the public art and historic architecture of the King Drive neighborhood. HMI was asked to develop this tour by King Drive Bid, which I think is a very important strength of this project. And the reason why the bid reached out to them is because of HMI's track record of developing similar app-based tours in collaboration with neighborhood groups over the past 4 years in Milwaukee. And the goals of the tour are to showcase the art, architecture, and community stories of King Drive, raise awareness of the critical role design plays in a vibrant and livable neighborhood, welcome exploration and improve perceptions of King Drive, and foster pride and encourage visitors to return to King Drive to support the local small business and arts community. The tour will be narrated by community leaders whose stipends are featured in the budget. And the self-guided tour, available as walking, biking, or driving tour, will highlight current businesses, notable community members, public art, parks, and significant landmarks, including spaces like Sam's Place Jazz Club. That's a plug for a restaurant I really like in the area, and Eric Blum's Dr. Martin Luther King sculpture. And the tour is going to be developed in July and launched during August 3rd through 12th, what is Bronze Week in the neighborhood. 5 artists will be directly involved in the project, and Historic Milwaukee hopes to engage 400 adults in person and 20 children in person. They are requesting 4,400. That money is going to be used to support artistic fees and services. That's the bulk of it, marketing, and cover the remaining operating expenses. And to me, the strength of this is really the idea that they were approached by the King Drive bid to do this work. I think it demonstrates HMI's sort of trust in the community and also their successes in launching other app tours, especially in BIPOC communities. So they've had previous experiences with the tour app. They were approached by the community. The tour is going to have a written and audio narration for each stop, as well as photos and images and a map, which to me widens the accessibility of it. It's going to be highlighted also as part of the September Doors Open Milwaukee, which to me means like a wider sort of sharing of this app to people across Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. And the Historic Milwaukee is also following the lead of community partners to ensure that the narratives of this story is one that is told by community and represents King Drive. So to me, it was really centering community and highlighting community the way that community asked to be highlighted. And just the question to me about what the remaining operating expenses might cover. And it would be good to see how the organization has refined their tours following some of the other apps that they've launched in BIPOC communities. So I'd love to see what they learned, for example, from I think it was like Mitchell Street or like a high Latinx community where they launched a tour that was in English and Spanish. I'd be really interested to see what they learned from launching that in a predominantly BIPOC community and how they might apply those lessons to the King Drive. So those are all of my thoughts, and there's no second reader, so I will open it up to I just want to say I'm a big fan of this application, particularly because it's something that they did not because they wanted to. It's something that they were approached to do, and I feel like that's such a gift. And it really demonstrates to me the community-led nature of this project. And I also, the letters of support coming from Ray, the head of the King Drive bid, and some of the other community members also just further added to the sweetness of this project for me.
Yeah, I can tag right on to that, Kantara. The artists working in education
Yes.
component seemed like a nice little addition too, in terms of providing specific attention to youth, younger kids, I think in particular, and they did have a nice support letter to go along with it. So I can add that to what you were just saying, Kantara.
I also really loved this application. I'm not as familiar with the Milwaukee area, but I love, the approach. I think given the historical racial strife that exists and, has existed in the area, projects like this are incredibly important. I think there's potentially an opportunity, and maybe they already do this and maybe it's in there and I missed it. But when we're talking architecture in the Milwaukee area, connecting with UW Milwaukee and their architectural program and engaging students very intentionally, I think would be amazing. As well. So just a suggestion for them related to this project to connect back to that, because there's not that many architectural programs in the country, never mind here. And maybe I missed that. But
And to add to this, unfortunately, this is a summer launch, but maybe this is something they could do for the fall around Doors Open. But this neighborhood, so this is my neighborhood, and it encompasses also Golda Meir, both elementary school and high school. So there's opportunities there also, I think, for youth engagement in the future.
Yeah. So I'd like to see that, like the community engagement in terms of, how does that work into it? But great project. Would be fun to do.
I'll just add, and this isn't about this application specifically, but I'd be interested to know how the bid measures changes over time. And so with projects like this and their partnership, what longitudinal changes they're able to mark. But yeah, I like this project. Thanks.
The other thing I'm really curious about, and this is about data collection. So I think there's a space in the app where people can provide feedback. Maybe this is just my own relationship with apps. I don't ever enter that data. So I'm sort of curious whether or not they are actually get a really good success rate of data from the apps and the in-tour experiences. And I know they're also going to be doing observation of the in-person experiences. So I'm really curious to hear from them about, again, going back to sort of feedback that they've gotten from apps and how they continue to improve the process.
The only other question that I had about the application was how they're getting the word out about the fact that the app is available and that the tours are there. Um, I'm sorry, I can't be super specific here because I can't remember all the details, but one of the questions I had was I didn't see, like I live in Western Wisconsin. So if I came to Milwaukee for a couple of days, how would I know about it? Does the tourist office have information about this? Are there other places to find it? I might not otherwise know that it's there, and I think it's really interesting. So I would have liked a little bit more information, I think, there. And Kentara, I don't know if you have more to add there. I'd welcome it.
I do live in Milwaukee and I'm familiar with historic Milwaukee, and it wasn't until I read the initial application that I was like, oh, they have an app. So there's that. I do think that they lean very heavily into the Tourism and Visit Milwaukee and Doors Open as an advertising mean. For this particular application, however, they will be doing paid digital advertisements and web trafficking, and I believe they're also going to be speaking to area radio stations to promote the app in the community as well. But I think your question, Ken, points to the larger issue of sort of how do you share about the app. And I will say that their turn to apps was really a COVID pivot when they weren't able to do their in-person tours. So maybe that also presents sort of a niche community, the people who are already doing their in-person historic Milwaukee, really committed to Doors Open, and then they were already sort of tracking them. But what we're talking about is an opportunity to grow to new audiences. And so I think, I guess another evaluation question is whether or not these apps that are really driven by community members who reach out to them, does that then widen their audience continually? So the people who do the King Drive app, do they then go, oh, I do want to do the Mitchell Street app, or I do want to do this other app? I think that would be an interesting sort of data point to track in terms of how you bring in new audiences.
One last thing related to new audiences. Milwaukee has so many festivals similar to Madison. So and culturally rich festivals. So it would be an opportunity to table at those, to talk to people about that as well.
Okay, do we have any other comments? If not, we can go ahead into our scoring portion.
And Bill, we're good to go from Dale.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, our next applicant is Just Bach Concerts, Inc.
And the first reader is Ida, and the second is Ken.
All right, so Just Bach Concerts is a concert series that was established in 2018 in Madison at Luther Memorial Church in Madison, which is just off University Drive right by the campus area. So this program has been going on for 6 years, but the new aspect of the program that they're asking for funding to go out into the community and, perform classical works like Bach, is that, it's really hard to get to the downtown Madison area for a noontime it's a free concert, but it's hard for people to get down there. Parking is difficult. Public transportation is okay, but again, it's on the campus and it's just difficult. So they were like, we need to get out, make it more accessible, just physically to people. But also they've thought really intentionally about bringing in different populations of people, in particular elderly folks, and being in communities both in the Madison and Milwaukee area, because they have Milwaukee area as well, or they're going to, that are connected to churches in different areas or community centers. So that's really what they're asking for funding for, is to expand their reach. So have more concerts in more diverse areas, both in Madison and Milwaukee. Most of the fees, $5,000 worth of the $6,000 that they're requesting, is going to artists, and then just a little bit of administrative costs of trying to put the event on. They have collaborations with orchestras and community centers and lots of places. So I like the idea of a well-established organization recognizing that they can increase their reach, and they can increase the access to this kind of music to more diverse populations, and also thinking about accessibility physically in places is really important. So I think that's a really big strength of that. I'm trying to think if there was something else. I think those were my biggest things. I think it's simple, like I think sometimes when you do the simple thing of just increasing reach and doing it intentionally with partnerships and connecting with stakeholders, which they have clearly done, it, really makes a program potentially soar. So for me, that's a really huge strength. I don't see a lot of weakness in this particular application.
Okay, well, well done. I agree with everything. I think the artistic standards, the quality here is very high. The bios reinforce the strength and quality of the people who are involved in it. The work samples were really good, so very nice there. I really like the idea of taking the music to the people, as I'd already mentioned. I like the efforts that they're making to be even more involved through the petting zoos of the instruments, through the community sings, which I enjoy, and they're even going to the point of trying to make music available in advance for inspired folks who want to practice a little bit beforehand. They're using historical instruments for some of the work. They have 2 ensembles that are going to be going out on tour, which I also think is really helpful too, in that one is a little bit larger, probably appropriate for larger spaces. And then there's a duo that goes out, if I'm remembering correctly, for other settings, probably generally smaller. I didn't see any issues in the budget. It's a brand new 501c3, so the board is new. The only thing that I would have looked for just a little bit is, as this ensemble is doing more now, representation of administrative experience in the bios. It was all pretty heavily focused on the musical side, which is appropriate. The outreach to seniors, as I had already mentioned, the outreach to Goodman as a community space that they're really trying to diversify their audience and reach people who don't normally hear it, all sounded good to me. What's wrong with Mozart, though? I'm just kidding, just kidding. I know that they perform other works, and I'm sure you've heard that joke 100 times, so I'm sorry to be 101. Oh, the last thing is the evaluation looked fine. One of the things that I especially liked, though, about their plans was to do follow-up calls to the locations like Trinity, Goodman. I assume all of those would get follow-up calls. And it's sometimes, I think, really valuable to do that a few days after it's happened and people have had a chance to think and hear a response. And so I really endorsed that kind of evaluation and thought that that was a nice touch. So thank you.
Kenneth, I'm glad you brought up that last point, because it's something that I said a few times in a lot of different applications, which people will hear me say later today, is that engaging your stakeholders in conversations for evaluative purposes is really important, not just the audiences, because a lot of applications didn't do that. So that'll be another one of those things, Karen, that we'll make sure and talk about. But thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's really important, especially when you're going to new venues, what's working well, what can we do better?
And related to that, and I might have just missed it, but I had put in some of my additional comments. But I wonder if there could be more description of the community that they've been serving. Like, what do they already know about the audiences that have come in the past, and how they would learn about those participants as they go forward. And as a side note, that, you know, when they mentioned the therapeutic benefits of group singing, you know, maybe there's a way to, again, measure that over time too, but not critical to this application, just a point of thought for the future.
I'll just add that there were some very nice letters of support that I noticed and appreciated. I also, one question for the ensemble is, in terms of reaching out and making this accessible, they definitely are at it already. I didn't see any information about reaching out to church choirs more specifically, or to school music departments in locations where they're going to perform. And while there might not be a lot of time for that, I think that kind of outreach could be really valuable and might lead to new partnerships in the years ahead.
Any other comments? Any thoughts?
Nothing to
Okay.
add.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Okay, if there's nothing else to comment on this application, then we can go ahead with our scoring, please.
And Bill, we're good to go from Dale.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, our next one is La Crosse Public Library.
And Ida's going to be the first reader, and there's no second reader.
All right, so the La Crosse Public Library is located in the Driftless region. La Crosse, and that Driftless region includes like 9 local counties. So as we know, libraries are hubs of community for not just reading, but for checking out like lots of equipment and you know, just general information. So it really is a cultural and social hub. They have a project that, you know, many libraries do. Theirs is called The Read. And this particular effort actually spans all of the counties. So I really like the inclusion of the regional read. They call it the regional read. And so this year's topic is actually going to be the arts, and they're being very intentional about bringing people in to do that. They really want to make sure that they are, you know, in addition to distributing books to read, that they're having events that are going to consist of people being able to participate in placemaking, artistic creation, and other arts related activities that will actually be free and accessible for participants in all 9 of the counties. One of the things that is central is that they have a La Crosse Public Library creation space and library of things, which give access to artistic space and art supplies and tools in a variety of media and digital formats. So The books are going to consist both of things for adults, fiction and nonfiction, and youth titles for different reading levels, and continuing to intentionally tie in arts and arts organizations in the areas. They're going to leverage relationships with local artists who will develop and lead the programs, both in the creation space, in the library, and then outside into the community. The books that they've chosen as the main books are Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert for adults, and The Artivist by Nicholas Smith for children. They're going to have 2 artists in residence, and they're commissioning a piece of art for display as well, and holding artist-led workshops. So the artists in residence are going to showcase their personal work, which I think is one of the really big strengths of this project. I think when you have, your idea for a regional read is books, but having 2 artists in residence there to cultivate a program that intentionally, ties together what folks are reading and what they're doing in the community is really strong. They're asking for $6,000. This is the first year that they've done this kind of project. They have regional reads, but the way that they're incorporating the artists into this project is new. So I really appreciate the way that they're thinking about it. I think it's a really strong application. It's well thought out. And, would probably like to know a little bit about how they're, choosing those artists, like how are we like spanning it across all of the counties, because, the maker place is in La Crosse, but if they're saying that they want this to be regional, how are we reaching out across? Yeah, that's what I got. Would love to hear others' comments.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot. I really appreciated that this is a regional with the other libraries, that they've planned this based on ongoing observations and input from those regional partner organizations. I think leveraging that creation space to engage with the community, especially with Project Proven at the Technical College, is a strength of this project. I really like seeing that. For me, it would have been helpful to, and unless I missed it, to see a proposed survey outline of how they're connecting that to their outcomes. But otherwise, I think everything else seemed pretty clear. Thanks.
Other thoughts?
Well, I can jump in. I really like the idea that they have that's been conceived of bringing the arts into the regional reads. I think it's a great idea, and I like some of the examples, storytellings. Oh gosh, Sumiagashi, is that how you say it? I'm sorry. Those sound fun. There were some questions for me on this. It's a project that's going to be in the fall. So like all of our applicants, we can't expect everything to be exactly spelled out, but there were some areas that I wished for more detail. So citizens are going to help create a 4-panel mural. I didn't see a lot of information, and I hope I didn't miss it, but I didn't see a lot of information about where, when, how will you invite them, how is that going to happen? I would have liked to have seen more there. The timeline felt kind of loose to me. Again, we can't expect everything to be nailed down, so I'm really trying to balance that. But for instance, multiple music programs were part of what is going to be offered in this project, but I don't recall seeing any detail about the multiple music programs aside from their being mentioned. And that to me felt like a fairly substantial piece, I gathered, of what they want to do. And I was concerned not to see more information about that. It just felt like maybe the grant timeline was a little bit ahead of where their own internal timeline is in terms of nailing down some of the details for what's going to happen as part of the regional read. The partnerships were good. I appreciate you mentioning Project Proven, which I thought was really a nice addition and speaks to diversity, as does some of the Banner Project and people who've worked on that in the past. So those things were good. Feels like there's one more thing. Yes, it's this. The project is, as Ida mentioned, features a book for students, and the project suggests that students are going to be reached, and yet I don't really recall reading in the application very much about how students are specifically going to be engaged. Presumably they'll come along to music events and things like that, but I wondered if they're especially targeted with some of the art or in any other ways. Similarly, the Bluff Country Tail Spinners are noted for storytelling, but I didn't see any information, biographies or much else to help me understand the quality of the work and how they'll do it. So just a little more detail in a number of areas would have helped me in terms of my view of the application.
I think this is the first year that they're incorporating the arts. So Ken, your questions about the timeline make me wonder if one of the things we should ask them to evaluate is whether or not they felt like they needed to give more time for the art creation. I feel like one of the later applicants that I comment on speaks to, in hindsight, I think in our initial review, we could have said, give yourself more time for the creation of the mural and everything else, because maybe they don't realize how much time goes into making that. And so I wonder if that will get finessed, and if they do this project for a second year, they might extend it beyond the fall, because I do think it's highly compressed and they're doing a lot for the arts, and maybe it's because they don't understand tactically how much is required and going to be required of the artists and the community members and the staff resources at the library. But yeah, that's a good note to add, and something that I wish I had caught earlier first round in terms of the timeline.
Ida, I know you put a lot of work into this. Is there anything that I've missed that you can add to? I just want to make sure I ask you that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I appreciate the questions that you brought up that, I think I probably missed, because I was focused on, the artists in residence, which I always think is really great to be able to do the way they're doing that. So my brain was over there. So thank you for y'all's comments.
Okay, does anyone else have any thoughts they want to add? All right, if not, then please go ahead to your scoring.
And we're good to go from Dale, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. We're going to take a little break before our next applicant. But I've been keeping track of the first reads and the rest of the conversation, and A lot of the first reads are going into the 3-minute time, which I think we just let this go organically. I think that's perfectly fine. It just seems what this group is doing, and conversation's been really great, so we appreciate that so much. We're staying right on time. We're literally like atomic clock right on time on this. So thank you for everyone for that. Yeah, so just keep the conversation going organically. If it drifts too far over 3 minutes in the first part, I'll raise my hand, but I'll continue to give that little timeline. But I don't want you to feel rushed. I want you to make sure you can have the conversation and keep it going between the panelists. So we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll meet back here at 10:39 and get going at 10:40. So thanks, everybody. Okay, welcome back, everyone. If we're ready to get started, we can move on to Madison Circus Space, Inc.
And Maggie is the first reader and Cantor is the second.
Thanks. Yeah, so Madison Circus Space, as you might imagine, is located in Madison. They're requesting $6,000 for this project. Madison Circus Space moved into a new facility in 2019, and their organization holds workshops and events that are open to the community. They're meant to foster appreciation for circus-related talent and creativity in Madison. And this is the third year of this specific project, the Artist in Residency project. This offers circus professionals, pre-professionals, the opportunity to come in and do a residency. It looks like 2 to 4 residents, each doing 4 to 6 weeks. This is a combination of self-directed training time, so access to the space to further develop their own skills. They would have performance space as well. The residents, in addition to working on their own work, would offer public classes and workshops to engage the community member, and each residency would culminate in a public ticketed sharing event. What I do really like about this project is there's a lot of partnerships with schools, community centers, social service agencies. It's this combination of sort of importing those circus skills that might not be present in the Madison area, so that the folks who are in the Madison area can gain new skills at the same time that artists have dedicated time and can be reimbursed for working on their own projects. I like that this is a less common art form, so being able to support something that isn't available everywhere, that this is a really unique opportunity to support that. I think some additional detail on what their various partnerships entail, and what information they gain from those partnerships in terms of planning and addressing needs would be helpful for me. I think the project, they've done it in the past. They're learning from it each time, so it seems to be financially feasible and they have that experience. When they talk about having a particular emphasis on engaging and uplifting non-dominant communities, and they talk about fostering a sense of belonging, empowerment, and cultural enrichment, I would like to understand more about the details of their outreach efforts for this. So I think, they mentioned that they have these efforts and they have partnerships, but for me to understand a little bit more about what that looks like and how they're measuring it to know that it's effective would be really helpful. I'm gonna just look through to see if I had other main comments. And then in terms of evaluation, they talk about focus groups. I think some additional one-on-one interviews would be helpful in evaluation, and thinking about maybe some long-term follow-up evaluation after the residency to understand what changes for those artists over time after having participated. And then I think they get a lot of information from the folks who are part of their community in Madison to know that has an impact on the skill sets that they're able to share with each other and build upon. So I think that continues to inform their work going forward, and that's really great. So those are my initial comments. I will yield.
Maggie captured a lot of what I was going to say. Good job, Maggie. I would say that to me, they had some of the highest engagement numbers with artists directly, hoping to engage 100 artists directly, engaging 2,000 people and engaging 400 children. And I think it's one of the highest numbers of child engagements across the applicants this year. I would agree that I would love to see more than lip service in terms of how they want to uplift non-dominant communities in circus performance, and how they do that. I will say that also one of the weaknesses I felt was around evaluation. I'd like to see more than a Google form for collecting surveys and the informal debrief with the artists, because I think that what they're really aiming to do is measure audience engagement with the circus. And because the circus is so, I don't always think the circus is considered an art form. I think they could use more qualitative metrics and opportunities to really see whether or not this residency and the public performance really helps people to understand and feel more connected to the circus as the arts. I also think more detail on the outcomes and consistency of community members participating in the planning and execution of residency activities would be helpful, such as how and who is serving on the selection committee, assisting with marketing and promotion, and volunteering at workshops and performances, all of that information to know whether or not they truly have community buy-in, or if this is the organization sort of doing a lot of this work. And so those were some of my comments. I will also say I really loved that the $6,000 that they're requesting all goes towards supporting the artist's fees for the residents. So it's just a side note. Those are all my additions. Good job, Maggie.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
Well, I can jump in and say that I like in terms of the quality of the application, what it's trying to accomplish, I like the 4 areas that they identified in terms of growth areas for the artists in residencies, opportunities to develop, to foster collaboration, to increase community access, and sustain circus arts. So it's a project that's really working to strengthen this area of performing arts. And I like the way that they're doing that. The board is mostly folks who themselves are involved in circus arts, which seems appropriate and probably helpful. Bios for the 4 people leading were useful. Nice letter of support from Carly as someone who's experienced this, so that was helpful. There is $12K in the budget. I wasn't sure how it was divided, and how much the artists get, and would have been interested in that. With regard to the evaluations, I agree. There was one thing that I can add there that I just noticed and thought was a kind of a nice touch, and that was that they mentioned that evaluations often take place in homes, where dinners are part of it, and it's a little bit more of an evening. And I don't know, it's a different way of doing it, and I kind of like that relaxed atmosphere and the longer period of time, and the hope that maybe more valuable information will come from something like that. Interesting to know. Great photos in the support materials. The last thing is Giles Quinn was listed as the staff member. I did not see a bio for Giles. And as someone who's always been on the administrative side of things, I kind of like to know what Giles is up to in terms of contributing to this project, and the skills that Giles brings to it. That's what I have. Thanks.
Ditto to the evaluative pieces. Like I always, like as a qualitative researcher, I appreciate the conversational piece, but doing it intentionally, right? Like even if you're having dinner, what are the things you really want to find out and engage people? So I just want to see the intentionality. In regards to engaging non-dominant, definitely echo what's already been said related to that, but furthering that in that when you use the wording non-dominant, it really leaves it very wide. And like, are you talking about BIPOC folks? Are you talking about, veterans? Are you talking about folks with disabilities? I think it's really important that you drill down specifically to populations when you're talking about that. So just a suggestion.
I think my only other comment, just as an additional suggestion for the future too, is to think about how to use videography for additional documentation, or maybe even recording some of the conversations and evaluative pieces.
Okay, anything else from the panel? Okay, please go ahead and score.
We're good to go from Dale, Bill.
Okay, thanks. Okay, our next applicant is Madison Contemporary Dance.
And the first reader is Ida, and there's no second reader.
So Madison Contemporary Dance is in Madison, Wisconsin. It was founded in 2010 by Sarah Rose, and it became a nonprofit in 2018. Programs that they have on a yearly basis, they have an adult company, youth group program, outreach classes, a summer intensive, 8+ community performances per year, a community dance party, a theater concert, a holiday concert, and a festival. They are at Kennedy Heights Community Center, and the bulk of the participants at Kennedy Heights are people of color with limited financial resources, to be able to experience and potentially pay for dance lessons and, dance and artistic opportunities like that. That's important because what they are asking for the funding for is a program called the Voices Collaboration Project, which will foster connections between the studio trained dancers from Madison, or in ballet, in modern and in modern contemporary, and then also in street style dance, so hip hop, breaking, krump, and house. And so they're really bringing those two worlds together and facilitating the creation of innovative dance works, educational outreach, and community performances. They really want to cultivate more diverse, inclusive, and interconnected dance landscapes between those two dance communities. And bringing that to the students and to diverse student populations. Their project activities that they want to have are no-fee children's classes, so weekly classes at Kennedy Heights Community Center, led by one of the directors or assistant directors, and then a performance potentially at the Overture Center, community dance classes, so 10 or more, again, no fee participant classes at more local spaces like parks and libraries, potentially daycares that are taught by a couple of the directors as well. There will also be performances by professional artists for no fee. They're like 8 no fee 45-minute dance concerts that are, again, collaborative between contemporary and street style dance in local spaces like parks and community centers and theaters. They will also have a theater concert that'll cost $15 to $18, but there will be complimentary tickets given to students and families at the Kennedy as part of the Kennedy Heights Dance Group. And then they're really going to be creating collaborative works. They're also going to document it with video. They're going to have a project documentary as well. Their evaluative aspects have very specific goals related to percentages that they'd like to see, and they're requesting $6,000, which will mostly go to both artist fees and the artist staff who will be helping do things. Yeah, I think that's all I have on that, and I will not be providing comment on this particular one as I have worked with one of the artists before.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Just that I think this is a really dynamic project. I really appreciate the mix of dance styles and just how much is intentional towards being accessible, trying to get it in spaces, trying to make sure that there are no cost barriers. I appreciate that their evaluation does have some clear outcomes, and year to year they continue that pattern, referring to their past performance and setting new goals. I think some additional one-on-one interviews might be useful. I think that tends to come up. They have a lot of broad partners for outreach, and clearly have the experience to execute on what they have planned. And this was another one where I thought that video documentation could be part of the project in the future. So that was all for me.
I'm excited for all of the youth engagement with dance across a variety of genres through this project. That makes me really hopeful, and it feels like a giant party and instruction. And I do think the conversation, it just feels good. It feels really good to read this application, to imagine it happening in Madison over the summer. So it made me smile and tingle all over.
Well, as I read it, I thought, wow, there is a lot going on here. Can they really do it? And I believe they can. There is a lot of detail in the itinerary and the timeline rather. I think the area that I want to concentrate on that I thought was really great and maybe one of the best examples of this was in the area of accessibility. Um, this is a project that is really trying to reach out to lots of different people, diverse groups, people who might not be served so much. And that's often said, but the things that demonstrated it so well for me are the fact that they have bilingual teachers on board. They tried to make sure that activity spaces were easily accessible on public transportation. Um, they have evaluations in at least 2 languages, as far as I could tell. It's already been mentioned that things are free. Uh, to eliminate that barrier, there was at least one nice letter of support that sort of confirmed some of this. So those things I thought were really strong in this application.
It sort of widens the definition of dance. Also, I also noticed they noted wheelchair accessibility and also various efforts for those who have sound sensitivities. And so that is a really nice point that they're trying to make dance accessible because it is accessible to all bodies.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, please go ahead and score.
Karen, I just sent you a message about that, about the scoring.
We're good to go from Dale, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, next up is Make Music Madison, Inc.
And the first reader is going to be Ken, and then there's no second reader.
All right, Make Music Madison. Madison, obviously, $6,000 requested for artist fees and other expenses. This is a 3rd-year project. This is a project, this is a music festival in Penn Park on Madison's south side, partnering with Boys and Girls Club of Dane County to make this happen. The idea is to provide a wonderful arts experience in a community area that might not have access to this so often. The quality of what has been proposed looks solid to me. I see artistic and cultural value, especially educational too, for the community center staff learning new skills in terms of trying to make this happen. Creation and development for local arts, yes. This is the second year at Penn Park, which is an interesting choice and I think a reasonable one, trying to make sure that the work that got started last year really has a chance to take full root and grow, and that the community center and other folks in the neighborhood can carry it on after Make Music works moves on to other locations. The timeline seemed fine to me. I didn't see any big problems in the budget. Board looks solid. Mary Rose seems to have a lot of skill for this kind of thing. Since this is a second year at Penn Park, I looked for and didn't feel like I found a lot of photo, video evidence of what happened last year to help me understand a little bit better. And I would have enjoyed that. I hope I didn't miss it somehow. I do see this project addressing economic and social needs. It is concerned with diversity in terms of where it's locating and the people it's trying to serve in this case. Two nice partner letters involved. The evaluation looked reasonable. The one big thing that I thought was missing, unless I missed it, is feedback from the artists. Let me go to my other notes on that. Yeah, I didn't see it evaluating participating artists, given that part of this project is intending to elevate artists from the area who might struggle to find opportunities to perform otherwise. It seemed like getting their feedback would be really important, and I don't recall seeing that in the application. The other thing that is great, but also a question for Make Music Madison, is reference to the 2018 survey. Really helpful to look at that. Still, a lot has changed in 6 years. I know surveys can't be done every other month, but is there any more new information that could inform going forward? I think that, the 2023 survey, which is new, included a number of favorable comments that I noticed related to diversity, inclusiveness, and variety, all of which speak well to efforts the last time around. I think that's what I have. Let's see. Oh, there is no second. So I open it up to all of you.
Ken, on your evaluation comments, I had made a note too to ask if the survey was the same for artists and participants, because that's what it looks like from the survey results from 2023. So I think, to your point, having a more direct data capture from the artists would be helpful, although they seem to be represented in those survey results, self-identified as musicians who performed. But I don't know if that was Make Music Day as a whole or if it was specific to this project last year. Anyway, yeah, otherwise I agree with your comments. I think they obviously have experience running Make Music Day in general. I will call out, I really like that the purpose behind this project was driven by the 2018 report by Madison's Task Force on Equity in Music Entertainment. You know, that was identified as a community need to get opportunities both for under-resourced artists and those neighborhoods that don't have as many music presentation opportunities. But this is in response to that. So I think that they're really trying to build upon that. And yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thoughts?
Nothing additional for me.
Same.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and score then.
Bill, we're good to go from Dale.
Okay, thanks. All right, our next applicant up is the Milwaukee Artists Resource Network.
And the first reader is Cantera, and the second is Maggie.
Okay, the Milwaukee Artists Resource Network is serving as lead applicant for a first-year project titled Finding Our Narratives, Speaking Our Truth. The project, Our Voices, will be led by Luna, an arts-run organization that champions for artists of color, advocating for equitable opportunities and recognition. Luna is led by, and these sessions, Our Voices, will be led by Katie Avila Lomiller and Veronica Murphy Sotelo. And the project is a 2-day intensive storytelling workshop held at Marn that will culminate in a public showcase that celebrates the rich tapestry of personal narratives within the community. This initiative will provide a platform for individuals to share their unique life experience while amplifying and celebrating the voices of BIPOC community members. The project will launch in fall 2024 with 7 artists directly involved and 75 anticipated adults engaged in person. Marn is requesting $3,500. The funds will be used to support personal administration, personal artistic fees, artist fees and services, and remaining operating expenses. The majority of the funds, $2,600, going to artist fees and services. So some of the strengths of the application, as I saw them, are the collaboration between Marn and Luna. I am based in Milwaukee, and I will say Luna has a really great reputation for supporting BIPOC artists, advocates, and creating space for community members. And I think Marn will really benefit from that collaboration, that partnership. And I think Luna will benefit from the space to facilitate this storytelling. I also think a strength of this project is that it aims to create a dedicated platform for BIPOC individuals to tell their stories. And it welcomes participants at varying levels of storytelling, although I wonder if in execution that's going to be true, because it is a 2-day intensive workshop. And so I feel like your spirit is either that of a risk taker and adventurer, or perhaps you already have a background in storytelling and you're comfortable with sort of that compressed workshop one day, finesse the next day, and then perform that day. So we'll see if varying levels of individuals actually participate. And the facilitators are highly skilled. So from the bios of Katie Avila Lomiller, who's also a professor at UWM in the theater department, and Veronica Murphy Sotelo, I believe that the facilitators will be able to craft and execute a really great 2-day workshop. And I think that Marn is also using their ticketing platform to support entry and registration. And so I think you get the great mix of sort of the systems-based support coming from MAM and the artistic support and vision coming from Luna. Some weaknesses, I think the biggest one for me is the state of Marn's finances. So fiscal year 2023 and 2024, they ran at a significant deficit of over $500K each. And while they're arguing that they're trying to boost their revenue streams and reduce operating costs, the deficit gives me pause. However, there is a low cost for executing this program, and I think that they will be able to accomplish it just fine. And it's not a weakness per se, but the application says that the workshop will be, it's what I mentioned before about whether or not this will truly be a space where all levels of storytellers who are adults will feel comfortable, or if it'll already be people who are familiar with the background in performance or like quickly putting an idea into motion. So those are all of my thoughts, and I'll pass it to you, Maggie.
Thanks. That was comprehensive. So I don't know that I have a whole lot to add, except that I had a similar thought about how to engage someone who wouldn't typically self-select into a storytelling workshop, as you mentioned, and could there be some lead-up activities, or I don't know. It sounds like there might have to be some personal recruitment and coaxing of participants in that way. And similarly, I think, I said that I believe the staff is certainly qualified, and, I know that the organization has executed things well in the past. I think that even though they addressed the operating deficit, additional explanation about that would have been helpful, especially to understand, I understand that they had significant grant funding that's getting spent down for their operations, but I did not, and maybe somebody else knows or understands, I didn't understand the planned reduction in expenses for next year, like how there's so much of a jump from what the current expenses have been. So that was just confusing to me, but you know, to your point, it didn't make me think that they couldn't do this project. Just was, I would have liked more detail to help me understand the context of all of that. I also thought that the work samples submitted, again, maybe I missed something, but I didn't think they strengthened the application. I'm not really sure what they were, except pictures of, I only saw like pictures of, it looked like a workshop or an engagement, but I didn't think that that was a strengthening point. Not necessarily for this application, but in the future, one of my suggestions might be to think about how to measure this supportive network they're trying to build for BIPOC artists. So I'd just be curious to know how they're thinking through this project and others like it, to know that maybe that ripple effect is actually happening. And with that, I will yield.
Yeah, so the photos, I don't think the photos add. I think a video file would have been helpful, especially since the two facilitators are performers. But the photos show the interior of the gallery performance space at Marne, where people would be performing on the stage. So you see Hoops, which is a performance that was held in workshop, I think, at Marne, and then some of Luna's previous facilitation work, like with the poster paper. But again, I don't know if it supports seeing the work that they do as storytellers. And then I'm not sure why they included the photo of the workshop space, if that's just to get a sense of Marne's space and where individuals will gather for the workshop. But I agree with you. And I think this is why, Maggie, your point about supporting BIPOC artists, I think these strategic partnerships could be really helpful for Marne in doing that, because I do think that perhaps a lot of the participants will be people who are pulled from Katie and Veronica's networks. And so perhaps one of the evaluation tools could also be a debrief between Marne and Luna, and sort of how this partnership helped to amplify and make BIPOC artists feel more comfortable with Marne and see Marne as a resource. That could be really helpful for Marne going forward, and for Luna for thinking about this partnership.
Yeah, that's a great thought.
Yeah, and I would just add to the context piece related to the budget. I think when I saw it, I was also jarred, but also working in a performing arts space and hearing conversations nationally about physical spaces, which this is the first time I think in the grants that we've looked at, other than the library, right, which has a municipal operating budget. Like these nonprofit spaces like this have had significant sales and rental reductions, you know, still post-COVID. And I'm wondering if that isn't, you know, if that is part of it. I would love to hear that part of the narrative as well, because it lends to what you're saying. Those strategic partnerships then, you know, give you a better idea of if they're increasing those, then it can potentially increase, you know, that revenue, so that budget, you know, continues to get a little bit better. But just more of a curiosity, because of the space being so drastically different than the other, you know, evaluate our grants that we've already looked at.
Continuing with the budget, it's funny, I use that exact word, jarring, in my notes. One of the things that I noticed is mention of a fund reserve, but I didn't see what the value of that was. And so I didn't know how valuable that was towards these larger deficits. And that detail might have helped me feel a little bit more comfortable. Otherwise, I'm still kind of struggling with that piece of it. In other regards, I thought the two people, Katie and Veronica, leading this looked really strong. Katie's syllabus, wow, you know, there's a lot there. So I don't have any doubt that she can do it, that they can do it. The focus, the tight focus on really serving the BIPOC community and doing it in 2 days, I really like that. You know, it's kind of like, okay, you're going to do this, and this is, you know, it's tight, and that's helpful for me. one thing around, one of you mentioned, reaching participants and getting folks feeling comfortable with being there of different abilities. One thing that I noticed in the timeline that I appreciated was their willingness to adjust the start date of this project, and they seem to indicate that it would be to try to make sure that they have the desired participation. And so I assume that means broad participation and giving a variety of people a chance to participate. So that looked good. 6 partner organizations, talked about that. The last thing is in the area of around evaluation and accessibility. I wrote most of a sentence here in my notes. I needed more help understanding how the quote regular feedback sessions will be held through the project to solicit, and then I did some dots from community members. It made it sound like there was going to be regular check-ins with people to see, sort of how are we doing? How's it going? What could we do differently? That's the impression that I got from that. But there was no more description there that I noticed or saw. And so it sounded good, but needed much more support to help me feel like it was going to be really valuable and useful.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, if not, then please go ahead and score.
Bill, we're good to go from Dale.
Okay, thank you. Up next is Mitchell Street Arts Collaborative, Inc.
And the first reader is Ken, and the reader is Cantera.
Okay, Milwaukee's Southside Miniature Exhibition by Mitchell Street Arts Collaborative. 6,000 requested, all for artist fees. It's the first year in the project. This project will create and display miniatures of neighborhood homes from the Mitchell Street area. And these homes are deemed to have unique cultural and architectural qualities. The models will be displayed in the public gallery, and the project will include workshops addressing neighborhood racial demographic shifts and their consequences over time. I really like the involvement and think it's critical that urban anthropology is involved in Cantera. I'm really going to be curious about your thoughts around this as an anthropologist, but it looked really good to me. Their role is going to be identifying homes on which the miniatures will be based and to research the demographic history. It looks like urban anthropology has a lot of skill in this area based on what I could tell. The quality of the art, based in the work samples, the photos that I saw looked good. I see education and social and cultural value in all of this for people who see this, especially for the neighborhood. I didn't see any particular budget issues except that I wasn't sure about stipends for the key artists and folks involved, and would have appreciated that information. I see artist fees in the budget, so I assume that these folks are going to be paid, but I would like to know more about that. let's see, evaluation plan seemed reasonable. I think that the letter from the alderman helped cement in my mind the value of Mitchell Street in the neighborhood and the work that it's doing. It certainly seems to be serving a diverse community, and that was evident to me. The one big concern for me about the application revolved around the two people who are going to lead it. I'm sorry, I can't find the names, the two names. There are two. The person I'm concerned about is Bella Bewer. I hope I'm saying that correctly, who is the architect here, and as a result, to me, someone who's really important to the project. I didn't see any biographical information about Bella. I saw Bella mentioned, and that was about it. So I did a little bit more digging myself to try to find information about Bella, and I'm not convinced that I did. I'm pretty sure that I did, but it was a different spelling of the last name. And so all of this caused me to feel a little bit unsettled about the connection of this relationship to Bella, when to me it seems to be a really important one. And so I guess I would have liked a lot more information in that regard. Salgado, sorry, last name, is the other key person, and the work samples that were featured all look really good and interesting to me. This is, as I think we mentioned about circus arts, a less common art form, I think, and so I appreciate it for that reason. The board members are all quite new, a young organization, but look to have useful skills for this. Community participation. Again, urban anthropology was a good relationship, really vital, I think, to make this work. I see youth included in audience projections. Wondered whether there was anything more around that rather than just kind of assuming that they're general attendance, but I didn't see more about that. Really glad you intend to have conversations with attendees as opposed to just asking for written information, because I would imagine that maybe some of the folks who attend this exhibition would be more comfortable talking than trying to write things. So I appreciated the idea of really speaking out and engaging folks in conversation that way. I think that's what I have. Kantara, you're next. Help me with what I missed.
And what you have is a lot. I will add out the gate that I really love this application. I think that it's one of the clearest applications I've read this cycle, and that's true from its initial submission and the grant review. I think Maggie talked about in a previous application the importance of bullets, and I think it's really easy to follow the narrative of this application. So that's one. The other is that I appreciate the creativity of the project in terms of the combination of architecture, miniature interiors, and research to discuss shifting landscapes and relationships to their environment and communities. Ida, I think you mentioned this with regard to the King Drive app, how, I think it was you, Ida, how the community might change over time and how the app might respond to this. And I feel like this project is a project that's responding to the shifting nature of the community. And it's doing so after conversations with community members. And I think one of the lines in the application was people only speak to those that look like them, was a recurring statement in the community listening sessions held at MISA last year. And so this project really addresses that complex community concern, but doing so through works of art that are literally structures that people see in their community. I think to respond to Bella and Whitney, Salgado's participation. And so this was one of the things that I really appreciate about this application is that in the narrative, they respond directly to WAB panel comments. So in their first round, we must have asked about why Whitney and why Bella. And so I agree still, Ken, that there's not a bio on Bella, but she was chosen because of her experience, not only as a professional architect, but because she has experience making miniature structures, which we got to see the images of. But again, a bio is always nice so that you can see the credentials of the people you're working with. And I think that the individuals leading the project seem knowledgeable and capable. I enjoy the evaluation methods, especially Ken, what you already pointed to, that so much of this is rooted in conversation. I also like that they responded to what do we do with the miniatures after, and that the Milwaukee Public Library is interested in displaying them. And also I like the idea of the workshop. So it's not just Whitney and Bella creating these things, but also having workshops so community members can learn how to create their own miniatures and have that transferable skill. The timeline seems very feasible to me. And I think a concern that I had, I'm really thinking about budgets today, but I was a little concerned that they're requesting $6,000 and that's exactly half of the total budget. And it'd be great to see a greater pool of funding or support coming from other entities. So those are all of my additional comments because Ken covered everything. Thanks, Ken.
Ida, Maggie, do you have something you want to add to that?
I think the note on the budget, and I could have missed something. I think I said I would have expected expenses related to the public displays and supplies needed to create the works in the budget, and I didn't see that, or I missed it. I like what you're saying about, the way that they're planning to capture information, somewhat in conversation. I'm also wondering if, in an exhibition like that or display, like, is there some way next to each miniature that you could be capturing people's reactions or asking even for like 1 or 2 words? That's just a side comment. Yeah, I really like this project. I think it's a well-considered application. I think that connection to the neighborhood's past and the community evolution is a really important one. Yeah, I'd like to think a little bit more too about how is that driving those conversations with people who don't look like each other. So I would be interested to know as this project progresses, how that materializes. But I really like this project.
Yeah, similar to the app project. Again, that tie between housing disparity and racial and economic things related to history of Milwaukee, I think is so vital. So I greatly appreciate the light that it's bringing to that so intentionally, and agree this was one of the applications that I thought was very well thought out in this cycle.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, if not, then please go ahead and score.
I'm sorry, this is very late in the process. I wanted to say that one of the things I noticed is that they are not counting exhibition attendance as part of their evaluation, which I think is really fascinating. I think it really puts more pressure on the one-on-one qualitative instead of quantitative metrics. That's it. Thank you.
We're good to go from Dale, Bill.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mount Horeb Area Arts Association.
And the first reader is Maggie, and the second reader is Ken.
Thanks. So this project, the organization is based in Mount Horeb and serves the surrounding regions. This project is happening within the township of Primrose. They're requesting $6,000, and this project is in its first year. It's called A Breath of Fresh Art, which I had to think before I say it. Your brain jumps to a different word. And this is a 2-day event aimed at building connections across urban and rural landscapes, including art installation and performances, co-produced with Catherine Kramer Projects. It's held at Primrose Retreat. A Breath of Fresh Art will have an overall theme of democracy in life and art. So it will include workshops on that theme, as well as more than 25 artists performing in genres of dance, music, poetry, sharing visual arts as well. I think the strengths of this application is the breadth of disciplines, and it sounds like a lot of meaningful engagement points for audience and participants. I really like the urban-rural connection points. I think the personnel and their experience with, they didn't refer to them as, previous year projects, but like pilot projects that have informed this 2-day event and what they've learned from them. Let me just roll down here. I think, yeah, the location looks really lovely, and it sounds like they're involving a lot of folks in the planning. Some of the weaknesses for me is seeing a little bit more range in the work samples. I think the highlight reel that was included, I would have liked to have heard some of the music as work samples as well. I think I love this theme of democracy in life and art, and understanding a little bit more about how they are connecting that through their evaluation process of how everyone is exploring that. I really like the concept of helping communities to connect to the quote rich experience of rural life ways, and the quality of the work that they did show and the folks involved seems appropriate. In the budget, for me, some of the fees that were being paid seem low, but it just might be the scope of this project. Otherwise, I thought the range of skills involved were of high quality. I would have liked some additional context about the community and its needs, or what that needs assessment is. But it sounds like there's enthusiasm about past projects, which I think indicates that it is addressing something that the community wants. And again, I would have liked to see something in the evaluation that speaks directly to the theme, especially if that theme is changing year to year. And then my last note for them was, it sounds like they're selecting artists by invitation only. So I'd like to know, or would have them consider how they might be serving participants or asking artists for potential referrals to expand the reach of the folks that they know individually to invite for participation. And with that, I will pass it on to Ken.
Thanks, Maggie. I found myself nodding along with you on your comments. In general, I thought it looked like a nice quality project. I like the idea of trying to bridge urban and rural for a variety of reasons, and noted in their application that they feel like they have succeeded from past years to more recent years in bringing more or less folks from urban and rural areas in equal numbers. 30 volunteers supporting the effort sounded good to me. I liked, in terms of evaluation, I liked as we've talked about it before, the effort to actually have phone conversations afterwards. There was mention of if people were willing to give their phone number so that they could contact them later and get a chance to talk more in detail rather than just right on the spot. I could have used a little bit more bio information for Greg and Patty to feel good about their role and their ability to take it on well. I think that those are the major comments. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
I really like that they specifically mentioned the artists in the evaluative piece, because you all heard me say that, like, I want the intentionality of the people who are participating in that to also be able to give feedback as well. So I greatly appreciated that, but also the opportunity for the phone conversations.
Nothing else to add. You guys covered it.
Okay, if there's no other comments, then please go ahead and score.
We're good to go from Dale, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, up next is Radio Milwaukee.
And the first reader is Cantera and the second is Ida.
All right. Radio Milwaukee is seeking funds for a second-year project set to begin after July 1st. And that project is funding for their monthly concert series, Latest and Greatest Live. The project extends the digital series, Latest and Greatest Live, hosted by Anthony Foster of Hyphen, Radio Milwaukee's quote-unquote urban alternative station. Designed to showcase and support musicians from across the state, Latest and Greatest Live is curated by Hyphen's founder, Tariq Moody, and music director, Element Everest Blanks, to ensure local artists receive a spotlight, and will be held at the 889 studio in Milwaukee's Walker's Point neighborhood. The event will celebrate Milwaukee's urban alternative music scene and its community by hosting 3 local talents, 2 local performers, and a DJ on the first Friday of each month. 50 artists will be directly involved in the project, and Radio Milwaukee hopes to engage 900 adults in person and 60 children in person. They're seeking $6,000, and the strengths of this project to me include the aim to amplify Black talent in Milwaukee and across the state, many of whom had not had the opportunity to perform at esteemed venues yet. The cost of the ticket for the live shows go directly to supporting the artists, which I think is amazing. This also meets a member demand for more live performance and engagement opportunities. So the program is really speaking to sort of what their membership group of 889 is seeking. And it also incorporates a pre-performance interview before each concert, which I like as a way of creating a connection and investment between the audience and the performer before the performer takes the stage, as opposed to sort of the post-performance talkback. The artists are called from public submissions from artists themselves and also social media requests. So there's a way in which, yes, Tariq and Everest will curate it, but it's really also curating from a general community-based submission process. And Hyphen benefits from the support of an active volunteer advisory board made up of strong local leaders of color from the community. Some of them are listed. They include P3 Development Group, JCP Construction, and the Milwaukee Brewers and Marcus Center for the Performing Arts. The evaluation methods seem adequate, so one-on-one interviews with artists. Ida, I know you will like that. So one-on-one interviews with the artists to ensure alignment with Radio Milwaukee's mission. Pre-performance interviews, post-event interviews with artists, and they're also going to be monitoring attendance and registration data to get a quantitative analysis of the event. I think what's missing is they don't mention this, but I think the social media requests for who people want to see from their community is another form of data and information gathering. And I think that they should consider that as a point of entry as well for culling local talent and supporting local talent. I think some of the weaknesses for me were the amount from the grant will be applied to total and cash expenses. And personally, I want to know what that means. And it seems there's an opportunity to put these funds towards the artistic services and fees, which is $9,600. And none of the request from the Wisconsin Art Board covers that. And this is sort of a philosophical question. So in the grant, they mention that a major problem in Milwaukee is the retention of Black citizens, and that this program and hyphen exists to support retaining Black citizens in Milwaukee. So my question is, how then do they know if this program will support the sustaining of a Black community? And that seems fundamental to sort of flushing out a little bit further in their surveys and evaluations, because I think their surveys and evaluations really cover sort of the experience, but I don't think it covers the long-term, how do we get Black talent and individuals to stay in the city, and how do we address that structural need, which they mention in the application themselves. So that is something that I'd like to see them think through in terms of their evaluations and sort of long-term look at this program and event. That's everything that I have to say initially. Ida, your turn.
Girl, you like got all the points, even the evaluative ones. Like I honestly, I think I love this application, and how they're elevating the this to in-person experiences is really great. And I appreciate that it grew out of those listening tours, that they're being responsive. But similar concerns that you shared related to that. If you have a big goal, like even if they're little steps, what are the little steps you're having to get there? I think this is another one of those places where I'd love to see, you talked about social media, but again, there are festivals and music things, like there are things going on all around Milwaukee. And so are there ways to engage those folks to let them know that this is happening, right? Because I think that lends itself to creating the community that they say that they want to create to retain people as well, right? It's going to these other places to then, use similar audience experience to get people to more things. So yeah, great job.
I'll say ditto to that long-term measurement piece being a note that I made just for future reference. But I know that that's a challenge for all of our organizations to figure out how do we draw that through line to those really lofty systemic changes that we know and believe the work adds to and moves forward, but what are some of the markers that could be thought about in the future? But otherwise, I really like this project. I did make a note that additional revenue sources would make the project budget stronger. And I know that they didn't explain, I don't think, the budget surpluses, but those are not major points. And yeah, another plus one that I appreciated the quarterly input from the advisory board, and I had made a note about the listening tour as well. But I thought that was really strong evidence of how they're trying to be responsive in this project. I yield.
This is more anecdotal than anything, but I think one of the things that could have been, you all let me know if you got this, but as someone in Milwaukee and familiar with Hyphen, they do so much more than radio and music. They really do gather individuals. Music is sometimes the glue, but often it is just placemaking and creating space. And I wonder if you got that from this application, or future support material could include some of the other events that they host, like Black and Brew, which is focused on Black breweries in Milwaukee, right? And held at Sugar Maple, a local bar, or some of the other events that they do that really sort of redefine what a radio station could be doing in community, so as to gather more Black individuals and create a sense of community, so that Black individuals feel like, why would I leave Milwaukee? Like, my community is here. So I think that supporting material and more on Tariq and Everest could be helpful going forward for folks who are outside of Milwaukee reading this application. But maybe you guys got all of that.
No,
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ida.
no, that was it. It was like, no, I would love that context.
I'm outside, and I think that what you're saying, Kantara, is important. The one way in which I got a little of that feeling was when I looked at the staff list, and Tariq's name, I think, was right at the very bottom, and I was thinking, wow, I would have sort of thought that Tariq was kind of at the heart of all of this, and Tariq is. But it then showed me, yeah, wow, there's quite a few other people doing quite a few other things. And so while I didn't really know what it was, um, I guess I got a little sense of what you're asking about, Kantara. I was super impressed by the bios for the two folks who are leading up this effort and the work that they're doing. Um, I just thought it was, they looked really well qualified to take it on, and had a lot of confidence there. The only question, and I'm trying to remember exactly why I wrote this, was that I felt like I would have liked more information about partnerships in the community, beyond what I was seeing through board members. And I'm not sure now if that's a valid concern anymore or not, because Karen Terry, you addressed that in some of your remarks. So I'm not sure about that one.
I think going forward, then I'll put that in my comments as well. Going forward, it'd be nice for them to address placemaking through hyphen.
Okay, any other comments? If not, please go ahead and score.
Just a note that I'm appreciating the conversations that you have and the discussions, and appreciating your differentiation between the good ideas that you have to suggest versus how it aligns with criteria and the things that we're asking for. I really appreciate that about this panel. And so there is a section, you probably already know, in the panelist comment sheet where you can put those kinds of suggestions, and that would be perfect. The more of those we get, the richer the experiences. So thank you all for that.
I guess I just want to second one other thing that I think you said, Kantara, and that was the pre-performance conversation. I find that really useful to help me better understand the work that I'm then going to listen to. And I feel a stronger connection to it, generally speaking. So I appreciate that you mentioned that and noticed it myself and really liked it. We're scoring now, right?
Bill, we're ready to
Okay, great, thank you.
go from Dale.
Okay, we'll get there. Okay, our next up before we break for lunch is Rise Up Central Wisconsin, Inc. And Maggie, you're the first reader.
Got
Sorry.
Yep. It's all good. Yeah, Rise Up Central Wisconsin. So they are located in Wausau, Wisconsin. This particular project is serving Wood County, which is not the county that Wausau is located in, but is southwest of that county. Rise Up has been a nonprofit since 2017, and it's really centered around using mural as participatory art and building connections across the community. So they've completed, if I'm remembering correctly, 4 murals to date, and they're working on this project with Wood County, as well as another mural in Wausau with the Hmong American Center. So this is requesting $6,000. This is the second year technically of this project called Mural of Hope Inspiring Futures. So in the first year of the project, they worked with more than 20 participants, particularly from a youth diversion program, to inform what the project would be. And this next phase is the planning and execution of installing a mural in downtown Wisconsin Rapids. So the goals of the project are certainly community spirit and sense of pride, contributing to social cohesion and social bonds. It is really focused on giving a voice to youth in Wood County to imagine what they would want their communities to be and what that expression should look like. I really love that this is using that collective visioning and in partnership with several youth serving organizations in Wood County, especially with Health and Human Services, and partnering with the UW-Madison Center for Community and Nonprofit Studies to really do evaluation of this, working with the medical college as well. I think this is a really engaging project. I think it has high artistic and educational value for the community. It seems really clear that the first phase, the first year of the project, has informed these next steps for them. They have previous experience with this community engagement and building murals. The folks involved have expertise in mental health, and I think especially in talking with the community like Wisconsin Rapids and working with young people, that's going to be really important. I think they're showing some signs of really trying to center perspectives of non-dominant community members. For the most part, I think the evaluation seems comprehensive, and uses experienced partners in that process. Similar to other conversations we've had today, I'd be interested, especially with mural projects, I'd be interested to know about any plans for observing those murals in the community after the project has ended, and some of that long-term impact and community change. I think I'm just looking through my notes. Sorry, there's so many of these, and I write so many things that like kind of have to go back and be like, why did I write that? And what was that context? But yeah, and having seen some of their previous work, I think, this is an exciting project and well thought out, and I really like this for Wisconsin Rapids. I'll hand it over.
Any other comments from other panelists?
I really like the phased approach, right? Like the engage, create, generate, it really does give you opportunity to focus on each of those areas, evaluate each of those, areas with the folks that they've partnered with. Also the intentional evaluation partners, I think is really great. I think we sometimes forget about those resources, particularly at public universities. Most have an office of some kind that does this. I think in more rural communities, even extension offices can help. So maybe that's one of those things I'll just take note of to tack on to the end related to evaluation. But I really liked the phased approach to this work. And that it's long enough, because we talked about that in an earlier project, that the creation of the mural, like we didn't know if they could create it during that time. And this one, because they've done it before, they know, how long the project will likely take. So that they allowed for that was good.
Other thoughts? No, there's no other thoughts here. Ken, you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll jump in. As Maggie pointed out, the application talks in some detail about having learned from previous experiences, but I could not find an actual example of something that had been learned, and I really wanted to hear that because there was a lot of effort saying, we've done this, we've experienced this, we're going to put that to use, and I just wanted to have an example there, or more than one. Let's see. The only other thing, and this is I'm just curious. So the work goes on to 5x5 pieces of cloth, right? And then people paint those pieces. Is it kind of like paint by number? And then the cloth doesn't go up on the wall. It's actually painted on the wall, right? But I just couldn't quite get that. Do you know how it works? I'm just curious. Any of you?
No, I don't have enough detail to answer that.
Thanks, Maggie.
No other comments? No other thoughts? Okay, then I think we can score this one.
And I do appreciate that's a good comment about the detail in lessons learned. I think that's one that I think we should bookmark for best practice at the end of the conversation too, because I think across a couple different arenas that happens where we're making assumptions about what the panelists might glean from that, and more specific examples are usually helpful.
So
Go ahead, Sarah.
yeah, so we're good to go from Dale on scoring. And so now we'll take lunch and we'll meet back here, what's it, at 12:39, 12:40.
12:39 sounds
And-
perfect.
And Karen, are you gonna end the Zoom and we'll hop back
I
on,
will.
or
I actually will do that and then we'll recommence. So thank you all so much.
Okay, see everyone soon.
See you shortly. All righty. Bye.